Buenas tardes a todos. Good afternoon, Mr. Lee Taft. Bienvenidos a una entrevista con Lee Taft, un Zoom que estamos haciendo en directo en Estados Unidos con una de las personas que en este momento para nosotros es referencia en el trabajo sobre mecánicas de movimiento multidireccional y ese trabajo inicial de las habilidades. Mr. Lee Taft, how is going? Good afternoon.
Hey, good afternoon. Thank you so much for having me on, David. I've been excited for this. This is awesome to be in a session here with you and your listeners. Thank you.
Bueno, le he preguntado que qué tal, cómo iba. Él ha comentado que está muy contento de estar con nosotros. Tenemos a un compañero, a José Mateu, que os va a ir traduciendo y dejar traducido en el chat todo lo que nosotros vayamos hablando. Incluso yo voy a ir traduciendo también, por lo tanto, ya sabéis, tened paciencia poquito a poco. So, we are going to start. Mr. Taft, you are one of the most important references into the world of multidirectional movement and movement mechanics, but most of the people don't know you from your past, they know your present. So where do you came from, Mr. Taft?
Yeah, so I grew up, I'm from New York. I started out as a physical education teacher, and I also coached basketball. I coached football. I coached track and field, and I also coached tennis as well. So I have, a big background of not only strength and conditioning, but also as a sport coach.
Sí, le he preguntado que todo el mundo conoce el presente de él por todos los vídeos que estamos trabajando, y él lo que nos comenta es que viene de Nueva York, que lleva muchos años trabajando en diferentes deportes, baloncesto, atletismo, tenis y fútbol. Do you mean American football, not soccer?
Right.
Yeah. So,
right.
First question. What is the difference between movement mechanic and movement skill?
So if we as coaches look at a movement, we want to know that there's a model that we follow. So for example, if I have an athlete run straight ahead, the mechanics that I need them to have allow them to be more efficient, more powerful, and therefore faster. Do you want me to stop there and then you can translate and then I can?
Yeah, no, it's okay. Mr. Taft dice que cuando nosotros hablamos de mecánicas es lo que el atleta necesita para correr más rápido, ser más potente y generar ese movimiento con mayor eficiencia.
Okay, now the skill portion of it. So having good mechanics allows the skill to be more effective. So the skill portion is my ability to use my mechanics, my ability to move with tactical abilities, the ability to read a play, the ability to make good decisions, and then take those mechanics of running and use them maybe to play better soccer, better football, better basketball, or tennis, or whatever it is.
Lo que él comenta es que la mecánica es el movimiento eficiente y que el skill, la porción de habilidad, es el movimiento eficiente dentro de un contexto técnico-táctico que le permite ser mejor jugador en su contexto. So, we are talking about context and non-context.
Yes.
So, the second question, how do we go from the non-context to the context and creating a path?
So I think one of the things that's important to do, and this is my philosophy might be different than a lot of people. I have this system called the reactive tier system. I believe the athlete's brain, they learn by being exposed to situations that they have to read and then make a decision. So they have a task to accomplish, they have to make a decision, and then they act on that decision. So if we allow athletes to be in a position where they actually perform the skill, and then us as coaches, we back them up and fill in the mechanical thing, so that context to the non-context. If we allow them to go and we allow them to read, then we can figure out where their flaws are because we're seeing them in their natural state.
Vale, lo que está comentando es que él piensa, en su filosofía, piensa que el cerebro del atleta tiene que entender que la tarea cuando se ejecuta está realizada en un contexto. Por lo tanto, desde el momento en que nosotros estamos creando esa mecánica eficiente, él tiene que entender la aplicación en el contexto y hacia dónde se camina. So, in terms of construction and an efficient mechanic, which are the key points for that?
Yeah. So when we look at mechanics, we have to kind of combine that with laws of human movement. Because if we want to change, and let's stay with running again, we'll stay with straight ahead running for the moment. If I can develop a model of how we want to move, how I want my arms to move, how I want my legs to move, and how I want my body to be positioned while that's happening. If I have that model, now what I can do is I can build the skill into that model. So I know if I use laws of inertia, changing my inertia, so I'm using force. If I can use laws of acceleration, which is pushing opposite the way I want to go, and then these action-reaction forces, those allow me to be able to hit proper positions or help me to be able to hit proper mechanical positions because I abide by the laws of movement. If I'm not moving really well, I may not be abiding by those laws very well, which ultimately hurt my mechanics.
Vale, lo que él está comentando es que lo que tenemos que atender primero es hacia un modelo mecánico, ¿vale? El primer paso es entender mecánica, es decir, cómo se coloca el cuerpo, cómo funcionan los brazos, cómo se generan los apoyos. A partir de entender el modelo, lo que hacemos es la búsqueda de la aplicación efectiva de las fuerzas, en ese sentido. Entonces, eso es lo que nos hace ser mucho más eficientes en la construcción de ese modelo. So, when we talk about the model, so you know that there is a discussion between good model or bad model. This is important, really important. So, do you know, people is arguing about, oh, there is no good or bad model. There is movement, but if we talk in terms of efficiency and effectivity and effectiveness, there is a good and not so good model. Le he preguntado que, claro, en términos de modelo, hay una discusión sobre si hay buen modelo o mal modelo aplicado, claro, no solo al movimiento, sino tenemos que hablar de eficiencia, efectividad y eficacia.
Yeah, so if we look at this good model, what we're really talking about is how can we get our limbs, our arms and our legs to be in the right positions to move fast if I need them to move fast. So if I need my arm to be fast, it has to be in a certain position. The shorter the limb, the faster I can move it.
Okay, sorry. Lo que primero que, porque así vamos traduciéndolo un poquito a poco. Lo primero que dice es que hay que crear una relación entre brazos y piernas, porque si yo necesito que mis brazos y mis piernas en ese buen modelo sean suficientemente eficientes, lo que hago es tener que mi posicionamiento del hombro tiene que ser correcto.
Yeah, so now, but what if I'm starting out accelerating and I'm changing my inertia? I need my limbs to be longer at certain times, so I might need a longer arm action. That helps me produce force over a longer period of time in the first couple steps. That's important. So if I don't have a good model of how my limbs move, then that's when we become less effective or efficient movers.
Vale, lo que él está diciendo es que, claro, yo estoy corriendo y ahora tengo que... Él se está refiriendo todo el rato a la aceleración lineal para hacerlo más sencillo, ¿vale? Si yo estoy corriendo y tengo un modelo mecánico sobre el cual estoy trabajando y ahora necesito romper la inercia y generar más aceleración, necesito que el rango de movimiento sea mayor, mis brazos se muevan más, mis piernas sean más efectivas, para poder generar esa ruptura de la inercia y crear más aceleración en términos de eficacia.
Yes. And then also, so let's say we're playing basketball and we're moving laterally now. The same thing applies. If I want to push off to move my center of mass, I have to push longer. But then when I need my leg to recover back so that it can push again, it has to get shorter so that it can come back quick, and then it pushes longer. So that fits into my model of a lateral movement.
Vale, y por ejemplo, él habla de que si ahora hablamos de un modelo de eficiencia del desplazamiento lateral, como por ejemplo en el baloncesto, podemos aplicar lo mismo, esa generación de fuerza, pero claro, esa misma fuerza tiene que volver a empujar y tiene que recuperar, y eso es lo que él llama en términos de su eficiencia al modelo. So, Mr. Taft, so you are talking about, you mean that into the running model, the recovery of the leg is because of the elastic properties of the cycle. Into your lateral movement, there is no elastic property in that frontal plane, so you need to push and recover. It's different.
Yeah, there is a degree of elastic energy laterally, but it's different because in running straight ahead, my legs exchange from front to back, but laterally, one leg stays in the back and it always stays in the back. The front leg always stays in the front. So I don't get the advantage of a complete cycle through my pelvis.
Vale, lo que le he preguntado es que, claro, en ese modelo, la diferencia grande que hay entre las ejecuciones efectivas entre la carrera es que en la carrera, y es lo que está contestando él, en la carrera este ciclo me ayuda a tener una gran recarga elástica, pero que en el movimiento de desplazamiento lateral es muy pequeña porque solo tengo una pierna que hace carga, empuja y vuelve, y no se apoya en la otra pierna. That's right.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
so...
And that's why we need to dorsiflex. When we dorsiflex laterally, so if I'm moving sideways and I dorsiflex my ankle, that helps me have a little bit more power in a cycle that's not as efficient as running.
Vale, por eso él dice que en el movimiento lateral necesitamos esa dorsiflexión para que cuando vuelva a empujar me ayude a mí a generar ese movimiento de recogida. So, what you are meaning or what you're trying to say is that with a model, we have the ability to see if the kinematics and the self-organization of the body with the movement are more or less efficient, not if there is a good movement or a bad movement. We are talking about in terms of energy storage, energy release, and efficiency of the movement and power.
That's right. Yes, exactly. And we need to be able to have a model that has a little bit of variability, because if I'm working with a 10-year-old young athlete, their model might not look like an Olympic athlete, but it's going to have similar efficient patterns. It's just maybe they're not strong enough yet, or they haven't had motor learning, the ability to motor learn something enough, or skill acquisition, or their biomechanics just aren't there yet. But they're capable of doing it, they're just not strong enough yet.
Vale, lo que él está diciendo es que este modelo lo podemos ver cuando comparamos un niño haciendo un movimiento y un atleta olímpico haciendo ese mismo movimiento. Claro que no son iguales, pero se pueden ver pequeñas similitudes entre los dos, cuyas diferencias están totalmente asociadas a que el niño no es lo suficientemente fuerte o no tiene un aprendizaje motor lo suficientemente efectivo, y por lo tanto para él es más complejo el poder generar la misma opción de movimiento, pero en términos globales estamos hablando de lo mismo. So we are talking about general motor patterns or general movement patterns.
Yes.
Es decir, que hablamos de patrones motores o patrones de movimiento generales.
Yep, that's it. So as a young athlete, what we try to do is we try to give them big global movements, because we know as they grow, not only does their physical structure change, but their nervous system has to adapt to this new length. So if we teach a young child very specific, detailed movements, well, it's probably going to change anyway as they grow. So early in development, let's give them good, general, basic, efficient patterns. And then as they get older and they're solidified in their growth, then we can be more detailed because it'll hold better in their nervous system.
Ok, una cosa que está diciendo que es bastante importante es que está hablando que ese desarrollo motor del niño está asociado a los cambios en su anatomía, en sus miembros y tal, pero así mismo su cabeza tiene que estar asociada a los constructos que esa nueva anatomía le está dando. Por lo tanto, si a un niño le hacemos detalles muy, muy específicos, no vamos a generar tantos cambios como si le hacemos trabajar sobre patrones generales y no siendo tan específicos, que ya se darán cuando él alcance unos niveles madurativos concretos. So, in terms of young athlete development, we know that the strength is very important. The functional strength, we call it when we refer the strength that we need in the movement in terms of efficiency, power, and biomechanics. But also, we need to connect the perception action system to the biomechanics. So, how do we create that context, learning context to the young people?
Yeah, to young people. So context is everything with young learners. Older adults, athletes, understand context better, but younger athletes, we need to put them in a position where the task that they have to accomplish happens naturally for them, and it makes sense to them. Like, for example, kicking a ball in a soccer goal. That makes sense to them. But what we need to do is, how can I make them strong enough, more efficient when they're kicking the ball into the goal? And so by allowing them to see what it means to be stronger and more efficient and how that helps them kick the ball into the soccer goal, that's how they understand the importance of doing it. But with an older athlete, I might just be able to spend 6 weeks, 8 weeks with weightlifting, and they understand the value. A younger kid's not going to understand that unless they get to play as well. So we need to, with younger kids, I like to be able to perform a skill and then do a strength exercise to kind of sustain that skill.
Vale, lo que él dice es que el contexto, que es lo que está hablando Pepe en la traducción, el contexto es algo natural que para ellos ocurre. Es decir, yo no le tengo que poner y forzar a que entiendan el contexto, porque es tan sencillo como ponerles a golpear una pelota para que entiendan que el golpeo de la pelota tiene una realidad, tiene una opción de trabajo. Si yo fuera un atleta mayor, evidentemente puedo generar 6 semanas de entrenamiento de fuerza sin necesidad de un trabajo específico para que lo entienda. Pero los niños necesitan el juego, necesitan la tarea para esa intención. Y yo no tengo que forzar el contexto aparece. Mr. Taft, one question about this, because I think the most important term of our conversation would be the young athlete, not so the senior athlete, the Olympic athlete, because we are very focused into the young athlete. In terms of developing the skills and the strength, do you create a linear path or a 3D path? I mean, first running, second multi-directional, third acceleration, or do you start in one point and create branches of that?
Yeah, I create branches right off, and here's why. If we take a young child and we watch them play, they have multiplanar movement right off. They can move and they can dodge and they can jump and they can skip. They can do all that. The brain associates sequences of patterns. My job is to give them as much of that as possible. But then when I see poor efficiency, then I can just work on that one little spot for a little bit and then put them right back into the holistic movement again. Because ultimately, going back to the question of context, that's how the young kids learn, is they learn by allowing them to have a task to accomplish. It might be the three of us playing tag. They understand that. So the closer I can stay there and just give a little bit of feedback on some of the, maybe a strength movement or a mechanical movement, then the better off they are.
Okay, lo que él está diciendo es que el niño cuando está moviéndose ya genera diferentes patrones mezclados y patrones multidireccionales. Entonces lo que él hace es crear ramas, ¿vale?, asociativas y conexionadas entre una y otra, porque ya el niño se va a encargar de poner y generar esas conexiones. Lo que hacemos nosotros es facilitadores de opciones para que el niño cree, porque y él vuelve a la pregunta del contexto, cuando nosotros le pongamos a hacer la tarea es cuando él realmente va a ver de manera autónoma que se está ejecutando, y el entrenador también lo ve, que se está ejecutando ese patrón o esa mecánica de movimiento de manera correcta. Por lo tanto, no es lineal, sino que empiezo por un lado, voy conectando step by step. You connect step by step.
Yes. Yes.
So, from the perspective of from soccer, basketball, in terms of general movement patterns, do you have some key points to create a relationship between them, or there are very different sports and they have no relationship at all?
No, they all have very much the same movement patterns. It's the context of how the sport is played that changes. So when I play basketball, my job is to get my hands in position to make a play. Soccer, my job is to get my feet in position. But how I accelerate to get there is going to be very similar. It's just how I position my body based on getting my hands in position to maybe dribble a ball versus dribbling a ball with my feet. I'm going to be taller. Basketball, I'm going to get a little bit lower. But the ability to move lateral, linear, backwards, still the laws of human movement apply across the board of all sports. So they're the same. They just change because the sport demands that I move a little bit different.
Vale, él lo que dice es que podemos encontrar algunas similaridades. Es decir, por ejemplo, cuando él entrena a jugadores de baloncesto, lo que quiere es poner a las manos en contexto. Y cuando él entrena a jugadores de fútbol, lo que pone son sus pies en contexto. En general, eso es lo que nos guía. Pero si nosotros estamos hablando en términos de aceleración, vamos a encontrar determinados puntos comunes entre uno y otro que nos permitan generar ese desarrollo. Pero luego es el contexto el que nos va a marcar las pequeñas diferencias. So, as the same that we have been talking about general movement patterns or general motor part between a child and an Olympic athlete doing some type of movement to a sport, there are also general movement patterns between sports in terms of acceleration mechanic, running mechanics. So the movement without the implement, without the ball or...
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And here's another point to kind of go back. If we look at sprinting, 100 meters, the task is to run from the blocks to the finish line. So I can get very tall once I start sprinting, and I can get ideal mechanics. But if I'm a soccer player, running as fast as I can after the soccer ball with an opponent right next to me, I can't reach those ideal positions because I have another constraint. I've got a ball and I've got an opponent right on me pushing me. So my mechanics, even though I'm applying the same principles of this is how I need to run fast, it has to adjust because of the demands that's right at that moment.
Y en lo que él está comentando es que, claro, al final lo que nosotros estamos viendo es qué necesitamos para generar un deportista que corra rápido en ese momento, incluyendo si puedo tener determinados implementos, situaciones, una persona golpeándome un balón. Al final la idea es volver a tener esas referencias básicas. So, because of that is the importance of having a model and a philosophy. Entonces, por eso lo importante es tener un modelo, una filosofía. Okay, where is the model coming from? We talk about research, we talk about physics, we talk about kinematics, and your idea, your experience.
Yes. Yeah. So how I started 30 plus years ago is I kept watching the best athletes move. And I noticed limb positions. I noticed things that all good athletes did the same. And then when I looked at younger athletes, I'm like, well, they're kind of the same. They're just maybe not as strong. So my model got developed by watching how the humans, regardless of age, had to move to accomplish a task. And then I took the biomechanics, the physics, the constraints, and then I allowed those to be able to tell me how the model gets adjusted.
Ok, le he preguntado eso, que de dónde venía el modelo, de la física, la cinemática y su experiencia, y él nos ha comentado que él hace 30 años empezó observando a los mejores atletas ejecutando determinados movimientos y que luego, cuando veía a los pequeños, veía que se empezaban a repetir esa similitud de patrones, ¿vale? O sea, empezaba a ver cómo la gestualidad se repetía y entonces lo que él fue viendo a lo largo del año es que se mantenía con consistencia ese parecido, esa similaridad. Entonces, a partir de ahí le fue añadiendo la parte física, la parte biomecánica, es decir, toda la parte de ciencia, los constraints y demás, para crear ese modelo. In that model, the strength, the design of the exercises is the same. You apply some general exercises and some specific exercises to the skill, to the sports, to the movement. En términos de la fuerza, ¿utilizamos ese mismo modelo? Es decir, ¿aplicamos también principios generales de fuerza y luego principios específicos?
Yeah, so early on, we do very general movement patterns, knee bending, hip bending, horizontal pressing, vertical pulling. So basic patterns. That gives a foundation of human movement. Now, let's say I want to help a basketball player or a tennis or a soccer athlete move a little bit quicker laterally. I may put more emphasis on, let's say, like the glute medius or their ability to abduct quicker, more powerfully, with more elastic energy. So I may do some specific things for them, maybe like some band loaded exercises, which allows me to create force a little bit longer, and then take the band away, and then they produce that force really, really quick. So I will go specific when I feel that that's needed, but if the sport itself doesn't increase it, that's when I'll use strength for specific patterns.
Vale, lo que ha comentado es eso, que como está poniendo Pepe, está diciendo que siempre hace unos patrones generales de fuerza, pues empujes horizontales, tirones verticales, trabajo de cadera, trabajo de movimientos de tipo de extensión, pero que luego, por ejemplo, si lo que estamos hablando es de entrenar a un jugador de baloncesto que necesita más desplazamiento lateral, pues a lo mejor él va a mirar hacia ese glúteo medio y a lo mejor en vez de glúteo medio más la capacidad de abducir durante largo tiempo y por eso utiliza una banda para poder generar mayor empuje. So in terms of the design of the exercises, which are your favorite stuff, your 5 stars exercises with this material, this stuff? In terms of, for example, acceleration training.
Yes. So first of all, I want to build a stronger engine. So I like bilateral. I like 2-leg squats, but I really like single leg for acceleration, forward, sideways, backwards, because that's how we do it. We push off one leg when we do that typically. So I like step ups, resisted step ups. I like banded, so a band behind me and doing like a step up like that, or a lunge to a high knee position. And then of course I love like pushing like a sled or resistance running. Those allow me to create force in a direction that I want to go. The step ups don't necessarily do it in the direction I want to go, but they increase the strength of the hips to help me push in the direction I want to go.
Vale, lo que él está diciendo es que, porque aunque a él le gusta la sentadilla a una pierna, o sea, a 2 piernas, él utiliza más tipos de empujes a una pierna, por ejemplo, el step up, la single leg squat. Utiliza también posteriormente ejercicios como trineos, resistidos, el step up y resistido, el sprint. So, we are talking about improving the kinetic needing of the exercise with the step up or single leg squat, and also the kinematic exercises or the kinematic needings of the movement pattern. So the hip flexion and extension quickly. So because of that, you use step up and sled pushing into a march or a skip.
Yes, yeah. So one thing that's important to understand is like, if I'm trying to improve like the actual kinematics of a movement, is like your listeners probably know what an A skip is. Like yeah. So an A skip is where you touch, comes down, up, up. But I like to do what I call a snap skip, where it's so we get that orientation of an extension with flexion and then the reversal of that quickly. That's what happens during acceleration and sprinting. A skips are good for helping one leg produce force down, but a snap skip actually helps the kinematics of how we actually move.
Vale, por ejemplo, está diciendo que en términos de cinemática, pone un ejemplo, dos tipos de skip. El A skip, que es bajas y subes, es como si hubiera un doble contacto, y luego tenemos el snap skip, en el que estás aquí, haces ¡plá! Haces un cambio rápido de este tipo. Entonces, lo que él está diciendo es que a él le gusta más el snap skip, porque la realidad cuando tú aceleras es que la extensión potente de una pierna conlleva la flexión potente de la otra. ¿Vale? We flex as we strengthen the limb powerfully. Entonces, él comenta eso, que dado que nosotros extendemos y flexionamos como generamos en la aceleración, él prefiere el skip, el snap skip. El A skip ayuda a crear fuerza a una pierna. Entonces ya volveríamos a tener esa relación, esos dos. But we can use both into the programming, into the program.
Definitely. So when I'm working on, if I'm working on max velocity sprinting, I will do A skips, I will do snap skips or pause skips. But if I'm working on acceleration, I will use power skips, because a power skip allows me to touch, roll, get a shin angle that's different, and then I can push off that way, as where an A skip and a snap skip keep my shin vertical when I attach down. That's why it's good to do all those types of skips.
Vale, en términos de generación de potencia y generación de un programa, él dice que prefiere, por ejemplo, los power skips en torno a la potencia de la aceleración, porque en el power skip no estás tan vertical como en los otros skips, sino que además estás ligeramente adelantado hacia adelante, que es lo que te permite empujar en ese vector horizontal, con lo cual tendríamos una gestión de ese programa. Okay, Mr. Taft, last two questions, and we are very humble and very happy to have you here, but we will have a one-day talk with you because of that. First question.
It's been fun.
How do you introduce this into an all-season program, from the off-season to the post-season?
Yes. So what's really important to me is in the off-season is that I improve qualities of movement and speed. I need to.
Okay. I'm going to go slowly because this is very important. So,
yes.
So you mean off season you improve speed and movement quality?
Yes.
Él dice que en términos de off season es pretemporada, ¿vale? O no es pretemporada, esa es la forma en la que los atletas están trabajando sin ser pretemporada, es la pre-pretemporada, podríamos llamarlo, ¿vale? Él dice que ese trabajo con el atleta lo haría en mejorar su velocidad y su calidad de movimiento.
Okay. So once we've established a better moving athlete, as we get closer to the season, then I start to build capacity to be able to use that new speed and that new efficiency better.
Vale, entonces él lo que habla es en términos de que vamos acercándonos hacia comienzo de la temporada, lo que le estaría dando es términos de capacidad, le estaría aumentando la capacidad del atleta, ¿vale? Que sea capaz de asumir esa nueva velocidad a la que se está acostumbrando y generar una mejoría de la eficiencia del movimiento.
Yep. So I do that by reducing rest periods and increasing density of work. Because what I need during the off season, I just need them to clean up patterns and move those patterns faster. But as we get closer to competition, I need them to be able to have that speed and that efficiency challenged so that they can do that through the entire game and season.
Vale, lo que él dice es que esta manera de hacerlo es reduciendo los periodos de descanso y aumentando la densidad del trabajo, porque durante la temporada no va a tener tiempo para perfeccionar esos patrones de movimiento, y lo que él necesita, según se va acercando a la competición, es que su capacidad, su nueva velocidad, su nueva calidad de movimiento sea retada por las demandas de la competición.
Yes. So now we get into the season. We get into the early part of the season. The competition and the stress and loading of playing the sport starts to replace the volume of work that I do. So now I go back to focusing on making sure we maintain or improve speed and efficiency of movement, because I don't want that to go away, but I don't do as much density or overall volume because now they're in the season and they're going to be a little bit more fatigued.
Vale, entonces aquí vuelve a compaginar y a controlar los términos de densidad y volumen, vuelve otra vez atrás a que mantenga o mejore su capacidad y su calidad de movimiento y su mantenimiento de la velocidad, pero ahora ya al estar dentro de la propia temporada y las demandas de la competición empezamos a tener ya un poco más de fatiga acumulada.
Okay, and then while I'm in the first part of the season, up to about halfway through, I'm still having some general movement patterns in there. But when I get at halfway to the championship part of the season, I become much more specific because I need them to master those patterns. So when they get to the end of the season and they've been doing very specific stuff, and then we start off season again, now I need to undo all of the stress they have and go back to the general.
Vale, entonces lo que él está diciendo es que esto que habíamos comentado es la primera parte, pero según se va produciendo la final, o sea, la segunda parte, desde el medio hacia el final, cuando ya se van a decidir los campeonatos, recordad que en Estados Unidos hay muchas ligas que se juegan por zona de playoffs y demás, lo que está haciendo es cada vez ser mucho más específico y meterle mucha más intensidad a la especificidad del movimiento, porque después lo que va a venir es otra vez un off-season y lo que va a hacer es, por así decirlo, desandar lo que ya hemos andado, es decir, vamos poco a poco from general to specific and from specific to general into the off-season. Vamos desde lo general o lo específico, desde off-season hasta el campeonato, y luego una vez que tiene el campeonato volvemos a descender entre los movimientos generales. And let's talk about the session, sorry. Yep. How do you introduce this concept into the session?
Yeah. So early on in a session, so let's say we're going to train for an hour. I'll just throw a number, an hour.
Okay.
The warm-up is, or what I call a prep period, is very much multi-planar, trying to build and get the heart rate up and try to get them to be efficient on all movement patterns. So knee bending, rotation, sagittal plane, frontal plane, controlling mass and momentum. So we do a lot of that early on. Then what I do is once they're warmed up, I go into reactive movement. So I want my athletes to make quick decisions based on a task. Then what I do is I transition into fixing the flaws that I saw when they were reacting. And the reason I do it that way, David, is because I want their brain to be able to understand that I want them to move reactively or predictively, but then all I want to do is once they've felt how they moved, that's the best time to make the correction. Then I'll add strength training at the end or conditioning if I'm going to condition on that day at the end.
Ok, lo que decía es que en la sesión, por ejemplo, él utiliza el calentamiento como algo mucho más multiplanar, subir las pulsaciones, hacer las pulsaciones en el sentido de preparar al atleta de una manera muchísimo más general, diferentes tipos de planos, diferentes tipos de ejes, y que al final del calentamiento él utiliza algún tipo de trabajo reactivo, ¿vale? Para que el atleta se vaya metiendo dentro de lo que sería el siguiente paso, que sería la utilización de determinadas tareas, ¿vale? En las que ya su cerebro está trabajando y que al final haría algún tipo de trabajo de fuerza o de acondicionamiento. Last question, Mr. Taft. It has been a pleasure for me. When, in terms of age, do you start to create the movement mechanic? Do you know what I mean?
Yes. Yeah. It depends on the movement, but if we're talking about very simple, easy exercises that the athlete understands and can draw context to, I'll do it right off. For example, you can teach a young child, 6, 7, 8 years old, to move their arms straight. But if I tried to teach them something like a lateral run step or a crossover, that's a little bit, they probably won't get that. So it goes in stages. Very simple, sagittal plane movements that they have an understanding. They see their friends doing it and they can understand it. I'll teach them very young, but very simple, very easy cues. And then as they get a little bit older, 13, 14, then I can start to go a little bit more detailed. But it's always got to be based on the context of how they're going to use that in their sport or activity, because otherwise they don't understand.
Ok, lo que dice es que se puede trabajar movimientos simples, sagitales, fáciles, que ellos incluso pueden ver en sus amigos cómo lo hacen, lo pueden trabajar desde muy pequeñitos siendo muy simple. Y luego ya cuando llegan a una edad un poquito más elevada, como pueda ser 13 o 14, pueden empezar a hablar de la complejidad del movimiento multidireccional, porque ellos ya son capaces de interiorizarlo y de ser además mucho más efectivos en su movimiento. Okay, Mr. Taft, for us it has been a pleasure. Have a big talk to Jen. I have been talking with her several times by email. Hope I will see you in September into your hope I want to go to your intern. Your last thought about this. One message for the people.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, first of all, I can't thank you enough for, having me as a guest on your show. I appreciate it so much. I'm honored. I would say the biggest thing that I would love for all coaches to understand is that we don't have to fix things right in that moment. We just have to start the process. We have to allow for learning to occur. Learning doesn't happen like that. Learning happens over time. In today's day and age, we want things to happen right now. It's not how it works. We got to allow mistakes to guide our pathway to success.
Vale, su último mensaje es que él quiere transmitir a los entrenadores que no tengan tanta ansiedad por corregir cosas en ese momento, que lo que tienen que tener claro es que deben empezar un proyecto, ¿vale? Y un proceso que les permita a lo largo del tiempo generar esa eficiencia. En los términos en los que corren hoy el día es que estamos todo el rato queriendo que las cosas ocurran ya, pero el aprendizaje no ocurre así, necesita tiempo. Okay, Mr. Taft, it has been a pleasure. And
thank you.
Hope you will have a nice day.
Yeah, you guys be safe and thank you. I appreciate it.